let's just say that we live in an environment that has infinite choices, infinite ways to entertain ourselves, perhaps, right? There's so many. You go on the internet and you can disappear into all the choices, right? And so I think that when I speak about the relationship between what might be called compulsive activity, compulsive behavior, and how does that relate to the process of becoming conscious? Well, it's very connected and important. And the reason is that when we start to become conscious, when we start to discover that there's awareness, so to speak, which is another way of describing awakened consciousness is awareness, that what we find is that there's often these gravitational pulls towards certain things, away from certain things, right? So we're trying to get something, we're trying to get rid of something, we're trying to understand something. And those three dynamics are the three main ways that we struggle with reality, okay? And if we're not conscious of those, then I would say those are compulsive behaviors. But once we become conscious of them, then just by bringing awareness to those dynamics, the space begins to open up. The space into awareness begins to open up. And that can be a very bumpy ride. It can be very painful and difficult. And often people need support through that process to allow it to fully gestate, to fully open up. Okay? So people often have little emotional release, have a little consciousness arising, but then the contraction of protection and defense kicks back in. So in an environment like satsang, or where there's teaching going on, when there's that mirroring of presence, it holds the space for allowing a full discharge or full opening into awareness, and all manner of struggle can all of a sudden disappear. And usually people find themselves in a very different state of mind, a very different state of body, a very different kind of, there can really be a profound shift at that point. And the reason for that is that there's a force field, there's a kind of gravitational force field of the compulsion that all of a sudden becomes conscious. We're not doing it. See, this is the tricky part. We're not in control of this. It's more that we learn how to give attention to what's really happening. You know, because the movement, what compels us is unfelt emotion. And when emotion can be fully felt without action, when that can actually discharge, then we're in equanimity. Then we can have intuition, and yes, we're going to go have a dinner at a restaurant somewhere. You know, I mean, it's like we can. It's not. Then it isn't like, you know, you're not thrown into it. You're not like just like gravitationally thrown into it. You know, it's more that it's clear that this. Oh, now this. So there's the end of that compulsion. You know, this idea of embracing. I don't know if I'd say embracing it, but I would embracing compulsivity. But I would certainly say to begin to realize that it's very much a part of the process of transformation. And often people want to get rid of the difficult experiences. They want to avoid the so-called compulsive, the addictive. They want to judge it, get rid of it, stop it, you know, willpower themselves not to do it, right? And actually, what really is important is to really let it be, not necessarily, but to really acknowledge it, to tell the truth about it. That's what I often talk about. Is the most important element is being able to tell the truth, to be able to fully disclose the condition, and in that, freedom is possible. So embracing compulsivity would be to really be able to have that awareness allow that. And that is really what cultivates what I would call compassion and big heart and unconditional love, really, and compassion for our human conditioning, which is not conscious. Now, people are often beating themselves up for what really they're not doing consciously at all. It's not, you know, it's just not operating from a conscious place. So once we can see that, oh, there it goes again, whatever that behavior is, or those thought patterns or those emotional movements, then we begin to see it from a bigger perspective. We begin to see it from this vastness that we are. And as we see it from that, then it can return, it can begin to unwind and literally re-energize and expand that space of awareness. So it actually facilitates the process of transformation. It's another, I'm thinking of Suzuki Roshi again, he used to say, you take the weeds out of that are growing around the plant, you pull them out and then you stick them back in and it nourishes the soil. That's what it means. So everything is energetic, everything is fundamentally energy. And that's why I like to talk about this in terms of what I call energy management, and to take away the sort of definition of spiritual practice. That seems very old way of thinking and has a lot of, people have lots and lots of projections onto that, and speak about it much more kind of practically, or energy management. So that emotion and compulsivity and all these human difficulties are just energies that are trying to find balance, to really find the movement that they need to have. And our defense mechanisms have literally stopped those movements from happening. And so we've learned how to block the flow of energy, literally. So we have to relearn how to allow that in an environment where we can be safe, because it can be very unsettling, very insecure, very destabilizing. People can have kriyas, they can have intense emotional release, they can have laughter, you see it, and we have all of it in satsang, where people have all manner of change, right?